Welcome to our little seminar on Cloud for Travel and Expenses. We're going to give you as a quick introduction to what Cloud for Travel and Expenses is about and what we can deliver to you. We start off looking at the travel market and why Cloud for Travel is such a great product in the current environment. And then we show you a quick demo on how Cloud for Travel looks and feels like on laptop or mobile device and which business processes are contained. We have seen a rise in travel costs in the last few years due to an increase in business travel, which is driven by globalization as well as wanting to see your customers, suppliers more often to be not pushed aside by the competition. This also means we are seeing an increase in the cost to process your travel expenses because you are submitting many more of those than in the past few years. Furthermore, mobility has been a great trend over the last few years, and many more companies starting to adopt and understand that their employees are on the road and should have a solution in their hand to allow them to be mobile with their systems. Additionally, we've seen that cloud solutions are taking over particular business processes. Here you will be able to see a couple of the challenges you might be facing yourself around your travel and expense business process. And the core to it is that many companies are still running a manual data entry process, which leads into an inefficient and expensive process in your business, as well as not being able to have visibility about your travel spend, because you're only going to see it once you're able to have the expenses keyed into your system. Paystream advisors have furthermore in their study looked at the cost of processing your expense claim, and these are for an entirely manual process $20, which drops to $7.60 if you are automating your expense process, which is a 62% saving on your business process expense. So the question is now, how could you automate your travel and expense processes? Now, Cloud for Travel and Expenses from SAP delivers you a people-centric solution which is focusing on the travelers. So the traveler gets a tool he can use anywhere, anytime, including offline. Whereas when we look at the manager, he has a tool available to himself to manage his budgets, as well as being able to efficiently approve any of the expense claims, as well as doing their own expense claims. Additional function includes the auditor functionality, allowing you to audit any expenses to the travel policies, including built-in functionality, allowing you to record violations to your travel policy. And once we look at the CFO, who wants to understand costs versus budgeted costs, and how those costs are affecting his cash flow. Now, because we're using a fully integrated solution, Cloud for Travel and Expenses, he will be able to understand his cash flow much better and manage his expense costs much closer in the future. So this concludes now our first introduction to the travel market, and now we're going to have a closer look at Cloud for Travel and Expenses from SAP to resolve some of those business pain points you may be experiencing around expenses and travel. Cloud for Travel and Expenses from SAP delivers to you an end-to-end process that could start off with planning the trip, then booking the trip, and thereafter reporting, claiming your expenses and getting reimbursed for your trip. But you can also just implement parts of this. So you could just implement the expense claim and reimbursement process without the plan and the booking of the trip. And we have a look a little bit later on, just to give you an overview how that may work if you are going to in the future embrace further extensions to your expense process, such as the planning and the booking. So what we're going to focus on today is in particular claiming the travel expense, getting approval, passing audit, and then getting reimbursed. So I'm going to show you that in the backend system of ERP. So let's start off looking as the employee logging onto the backend cloud for travel and expenses system. So here you can see, first of all, it's my home page, so I can request a trip, I can claim travel expenses, as well as claim non-travel expenses. Underneath it, I got my list of expenses. At the moment, I can view all of them, so I've got a list selection going on here. I could just change that over to have a look which ones are my reimbursed expenses, as well as on the right hand side, if we scroll down, I've got a expense tracker to give me some sums on what is going on at the moment. So I've got still $600 to submit, as well as $1,500 pending reimbursement, so I'm waiting for the company to pay me for those. Above it, I can see I've got some expenses outstanding, which I should be still putting through my expense claims. So if I just open those up for you to be able to see those. In here you can see expense claims such as my expense claims I put through on a mobile, on a laptop, wherever I may be. Then obviously you can see I've got some credit card expenses coming through. So Cloud for Travel and Expenses can take your uploads files from your credit card providers such as Amex, Visa or MasterCard, and therefore you can give the employee the opportunity to code those expenses to the correct entries required. You may also want to consider to introduce your expenses from third parties, such as invoices from your travel provider. So, for example, if you're using companies like Household Travel or whoever, Orbit out there, they are sending you a summary invoice once a month, and you can load those through for the employees to code them correctly. And particularly, we find that. So to come back to my main home screen, I just need to close the X. And that brings me back to my home screen. So you can see I'm back home. Now, if I wanted to see one of my expense claims, all I need to do is click onto it. So wherever you see something blue highlighted in the system, you will be able to click onto it and therefore see the details associated. So I now can see my trip for that particular date range I've just selected. If I close that back down again with the blue X, I've got a little help center here, which is great if I need to understand what do I need to do quickly. So it's very useful. So it has a search function inside. So if I just put in expense, it should come up on telling me how I can claim expenses. So I'm now going to start off showing you a expense claim and how do I do an expense claim through this particular system. So I'm going to go claim travel expense. That will then allow me to enter what's the purpose of my trip. So I'm trip to Sydney. That might already tell me there might be some available for that, but I'm going to jump over that into the next field. So what is my start and end dates for that particular trip? So I started on the 30th and I finished on the 2nd at 5 p.m. and obviously the destination country. If I just show you something around the allowances and change that over to Australia instead, so we can quickly discuss how allowances could be calculated through the system, and click Save and Open. If there would have been a conflict I can set up conflict messages so that I couldn't do a trip the same time I'm already on a trip as well. So here you can now see the initial screen for the travel expense claim. As you can see, I've got the key information above of what's my trip about, when did I go to, where did I go to. If I just select the meals per diem straight away, and we just have a little look at that. So as you can see, nothing has been calculated so far. If I calculate my trip per diem, you can see I've set up a rule that on my first day I'm not entitled for a per diem allowance, because it's not a full 24 hours. So I'm going to have to be full 24 hours in order to be able to claim my meals per diem. This is all settings in the background of the system, allowing you to then set your travel policies over into the system settings. Now, if I switch that back over now to, instead of destination country, to New Zealand, and calculate that again, so you are able to set up different rates for different countries. Change that over and click calculate. You will find my rate will be different on the per diem to my Australian rate. So it's gone from $83 to $75. That's per diem. If we now, I've got a bit of mileage, I needed to go to the airport, so I click on claim mileage. In here I can just type in from where to where. It has Google Map integration. So I went from 49 Main Highway Auckland to Auckland Airport. Refresh this, and automatic calculation should turn up for me. It also brings me a little map underneath to tell me. And now I've done this trip reverse, so all I need to do, or as a round trip, all I need to do is flag this round trip flag, and it automatically adds up the numbers. And in order to add it to the trip, I just click on add. And so that adds the mileage to it. Now, if I have other expenses to claim, all I need to do is go on add expense. It allows me to then say, okay, what do I want to add? Let's say I've got some hotel expenses here, over $300. Click on add. To find out, underneath it, I've made a setting to hotel as travel type, so that if I come over and above, for example, a certain value, I'm going to have to claim, I have to put a comment or an attachment to it. Now, it's up to your own policies on how that will be set up. In our case, all I need to do is put a comment on this particular item, but usually you probably would say an attachment is required to this particular item. So if we say comment, let's say travel, that obviously removes the red line to it. So if I show you a couple of other examples around this subject, let's take, in our case, taxis. Got some taxi fares going on, over $100 amount. So you find again, here I'm getting a slightly different message, because I'm now getting allows a maximum of $60. Now, I know I've wrapped up all my taxi receipts into one item. So what you can do additionally is itemize your particular receipts. So I just go into itemize in here. I can now itemize so that I can claim correctly those values. So in that case, let's say taxi again, and 50. And then I had a second receipt of a taxi. This itemization becomes very valuable when we're talking about hotel receipts. particularly. We may have all the different things like Wi-Fi charges, breakfast, and all those things on there. I might not be able to claim. Therefore, I've now can itemize it here without having to break each one out. I just use itemization potentially. So as you can see, because I itemized it, it shows me now a line around show itemization. So if I do another one for parking now, because I've set a different rule up for parking, and show you how that works. So in my case, I think I had $50 of parking. So as you can see in this instance, my company policy requires me to put an attachment to it. It also puts a policy violation to it because I've gone over and above. So there is about 15-20 different rules we can set up against different travel types within the system, ensuring that compliance with your travel policy can be achieved through Cloud for Travel and simplifying it further. So in my case, to actually be able to process and submit my travel expense, I need to upload an attachment. So just click on upload and select a picture. So that loads my picture in, and I'm done with that. So as you can see, I now get also a little clip paper which tells me I've got an attachment associated to that expense claim. As well as when we talked about the hotel earlier, I put a comment against. If I just hover over that comment, I get that displayed to me. I don't need to jump into the details of that particular trip. Now, we talked about it earlier already that I've got other expense items which may come through Amex, MasterCard, or your travel provider invoice. So I can associate those straight away here in the system without coming anywhere else to my trip too. So all I need to do is pick up my particular receipt, assign, and that's me done with my receipt associated. So you can see I've got also my credit card receipt associated. Now that's all me done on my particular expense claim, and all I need to do is submit it for processing to my, or for approval to my expense manager, line manager, project manager, whichever it may be. And click on submit. So that now goes to my line manager for approval. Just to give you an overview as well on the mobile solution, I've just picked up my iPhone with Cloud Travel and Expenses, and here I can see a tile view on how easy it is to enter your expense claims through SAP Cloud for Travel and Expenses. So in here I've got a couple of tiles. One is the expenses and mileage. If I click on that, you'll be seeing all the entries which still need to be associated to a trip. So you can see it's assigned, 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 but I haven't submitted anything of those. That also includes again any Amex statements, credit card statements, or your travel provider invoices if you wanted to include them in here. So if I come back and just go and add another expense in here, so all I need to do is take a little picture, use this photo, there we go. There is a little push button here for image recognition, so if I slide this over or on and off, This means if you have an OCR solution in your backend, we can easily connect up with this one so that the user doesn't even have to think about what is that receipt related to. So for example, if the receipt would have parking associated, the expense type would be automatically filled with parking, and all the costs or expense amounts would be also read from the receipt by OCR and filled in accordingly. So if I just put my one in here manually, and I do have a little itemize again, so I could itemize it. I also got a automatic assignment, which means I'm going to auto assign this to a trip. So in our case, the date for the trip is the 2nd of the 10th. And that's pretty much it, unless I want to give a comment. So that's how easy it is to add a new expense to my trip itself. So as you can see, it straight away came back and said assigned to trip to Sydney. So it knows I'm on this trip from the, let's say, the 30th to the 2nd. It knows to auto assign this to this trip, and I don't have to worry about it. The only thing I have to worry about it, so if I come to expense report this time, it's my little trip to Sydney up top. It also tells me the violations that I still need to submit it. So I haven't submitted this to my manager yet. So if I go in, have a look at my trip, so I can see all my expenses, the violations and attachments. I can click on those. So it tells me what are the different things I've put onto my trip, as well as the attachments. So you can see my attachments coming through and the violations telling me. If I had any comments, it will show those as well. So if I want to submit it, as simple as click on the little push button up top in the right hand corner and say submit. So that will be sent to my manager. So you can see my manager is defined here, and he hopefully will be approving my expenses for that particular trip. So that's gone now. I do have a filter here on the top. It says 3 to submit. I can also on the mobile device look at what is pending. So hopefully you can see my trip I just submitted to my manager, as well as being able to see the reimbursed ones for myself. Come back. And that's how easy it is on a mobile phone. It does have offline capability. So if you are in a plane scenario or on a train or going through a tunnel and you don't have connectivity, you can log on to this mobile app and take your screenshots or your pictures and fill in your expenses and then submit once you come into mobile connectivity again. I'm now logged in as a manager, and I can see the approvals coming through I should be transacting. So you can see my trip to Sydney has come through from Susan. I can see there is a violation against that particular trip. I can also see how is my budget doing, my travel budget for my cost center against the already claimed expenses. I can straight away approve from here. I can straight away approve from here or decline. I can go into the trip if I'm interested in a particular item because I'm not sure that one of the items reflects as it should be. I want to make sure that everything is correct to our company policy. So I can flick through them, see what there is coming through from the employee, and I'm happy with that, so I can go and approve. Or, like I said, I'm happy from the front screen, I can approve directly from here. Once I approve, I get a little comment box. I can just say approved. That means my expense claim or trip claim is going out for reimbursements to the accounts department. I can also decline, and a similar thing happens here, that if I decline, you will see I've got a comment I have to make mandatory to the employee. So check parking ticket. missing. And that means my employee knows he should be updating something else in the expense report. Last but not least, as a manager, I can define substitutes for my approval. So for example, I'm absent, I'm going to be on 2-week leave, and I know who's going to take over for me during that duration. So I can define my substitutes in here. You could also take that away through your role setup. So if your company doesn't want to allow this, you can remove this from the user if you wanted to. So that's how simple I come in as a manager and run a particular approval. So you had a quick look at claiming travel and expenses. So that included me as an employee being mobile as well as being on a desktop. We had a look at the approval from the manager itself, and you can set up multi-level approvals if required in the system too. If you wanted to, you can pass as a secondary approval step or a third level your expenses to an audit function. So for example, finance at the moment might go through your spreadsheets and look through that everything is adding up and correct. You might pass that same step in the future through an audit function, and that's fully enabled within the system to enable expense claim to go to an audit function before it then goes to reimbursement. So last step in this chain is now we're going to have a quick look at the reimbursement side of things and how easy that is done. From an indication point of view, as soon as I click the approval for a particular trip and there's no further approvals required, like the audit or a secondary approval because some levels have been reached, the trip expense claim will be sent straight away into the ERP system. That means if I now jump into the back-end ERP system, I should be able, so here I can get my vendor line items. In this instance, we are syncing our expenses to a vendor account for that employee. I should be able to find my trip associated. So you can see my trip appears, my expense claim appears against that vendor to be paid. So if I go into the line item details, you'll be able to see this is my trip to be paid to my employee. And as soon as the payment run runs, so our payment run immediately, therefore it has been cleared, the trip has been cleared. So I'm back in as the employee now to check my expenses. I can see my trip to LA has been reimbursed. And that comes back from the ERP system to tell Cloud for Travel. Cloud for Travel integrates natively with ERP, but we also have other integration points available. So this little slide is just to illustrate to you how Cloud for Travel and Expenses integrates with SAP as well as front-end providers. So if we look on the left-hand side, we can see the integration points, particularly related to booking the trip. So we can integrate with software such as Get There, Amadeus, eTravel. These are the ones for allowing you to create itineraries and booking travel through their websites, which can be synced back to SAP Cloud for Travel. So for example, once a trip request has been made for a particular trip, an employee will forward that to the travel department, which may then go out to Get There and look at the best options and book those accordingly. Most of the times you find here in New Zealand that you might be using companies, travel providers to manage that for you. So furthermore, a step further down, we got the receipt itemization in e-invoicing, and that's all around the OCR side of things. So optical character recognition is available within Cloud for Travel as an integration point. So you can integrate your existing OCR solution with Cloud for Travel for invoice and receipt recognition. So by invoice recognition, I mean your travel companies working with you and sending you their summarized invoice on a monthly basis. Then the next step down is Google Maps integration, and you saw that by the mileage calculation. So when I went into the back end and picked up my mileage calculation and entry, you saw that I was able to do Google Maps, and by just putting the directions in from to, it allowed me to calculate my mileage and then also round trip my mileage accordingly. And last but not least, as the front-end integration, we also got the MasterCard, Visa, Amex integration, allowing you to import credit card feeds to Cloud for Travel, and therefore ensuring that all travel costs are accounted for against the correct entries. Now, when we look on the other side, on the right-hand side, it's now all about how does Cloud for Travel talk to ERP or any other ERP. It's not just for SAP, as well as if you are having a SuccessFactors as your install, we can also integrate with SuccessFactors. So the core, if we're integrating with SAP ERP, it's key to pick up master data for us. So that maybe your HCM master data, so your employee records holding information, so that we can transact that back. Other information is cost centers, projects, internal orders, sales orders, all the objects you may be booking costs against as part of your trip expenses. And on the other hand, we're also bringing back the statuses. So you saw that earlier, as well as being able to bring back exchange rates. So for example, if you are putting a Aussie dollar receipt through, you will be able to auto-translate that in the system or give the system a chance to enter the exchange rate by the employee. So to push the data back to the ERP database, it's more around the trip, and the reimbursement as such can be transacted. And that can be done either through the financial side, so we have a vendor created for the particular employee, or you're sending the reimbursement data back for the payroll to reimburse that particular employee. And that then feeds back the statuses once reimbursement has been made. This can be done in the same way with any other ERP system. It's not just for SAP. And as part of SuccessFactors, we got the integration for the master data for employees and reporting line structures we can bring back up. So this simplifies the business process greatly because there's no double entry. We're grabbing the database from a central point. We're pushing the data from Cloud for Travel into ERP for reimbursement. So all these manual entry points you may have at the moment where an employee has to fill in a spreadsheet, attaches receipts manually, then the spreadsheet has to be validated, then it gets rekeyed into ERP. This process has been greatly simplified and improved through SAP Cloud for Travel and Expenses. Just to wrap up our little demonstration, SAP Cloud for Travel and Expenses provides you with a mobile solution to allow you to simplify your business process around travel and expense management. It gives you an intuitive user experience, so it's very easy to learn, including providing help wherever you need it. It's flexible on the integration, so where you require integration, it is natively available to SAP ERP, FI, or HCM and HCM, as well as providing comprehensive compliance so that you can give to your auditors the information, yes, we complied to our travel policies, and here are the exceptions from the rule. This is very easily achieved with Cloud for Travel and Expenses from SAP. So last but not least, thank you very much for everyone's time. If you want to get in touch, you can follow us on Twitter or on LinkedIn. So Twitter is @SoltiusNZ, LinkedIn is SoltiusNZ. And if you've got further questions, please do send them to shay.lambert@soltius.co.nz. Thank you very much.